Howdy doodly gamerinos, welcome back to another meta update. My name is Joshua Joshi Howard, and today we're going to be talking about what happened this last weekend. It's January 26th here in the Pacific Northwest, and let's go ahead and get into it. To start off with, Guard was looking pretty good once again this weekend. We had 100 oh, hello, I thought you had gone downstairs. Anyway, we had 165 wins, 133 losses, 6 draws for an overall win rate of 55.3%, which is very, very high. This is like 8 to 10 percentage points higher than what we were looking at during the previous data slate. Basically, any point. So Guard is looking very, very good. We had an average elo of 1575.8 and a median of 1543.2. So it has gone up a decent amount over the past couple of weeks. Partly we're seeing, as like more people are starting to have more events, we are starting to see this go up, and also more people who are playing other factions are coming back to Guard quite a bit, which is concerning. But we can talk about that later. Overall, we had 49 out of 55 singles players were on Grizzled. We had a Bridgehead. There was a couple combined, a couple Hammer, but nothing really moves the needle. We are still at like 90% of people who are playing singles events are playing Grizzled, which is very, very high. So far, Grizzled over the past couple of weeks, like almost 2 months at this point, Grizzled is now up to a 54.3% win rate across all players. And we're starting to see a stronger condensation of lists back towards some well-known historical archetypes. We're going to be continuing with the grouping up of lists because we're still having like a lot of lists, like way more lists on this slate than we were having it on last slate. They're just showing up quite a bit more. But one of the couple things to kind of think about right now is that so far the win rate of like top players, of your 1600 plus players, has not really moved. We're still hovering around low 70s, to the point where it's basically just noise between last slate and this slate. However, the win rate for the overall, the win rate for the population in general is significantly higher now than it used to be. So we are very quickly running into a spot where if you are already a very good player, you can continue playing combined. But if you are not already at the spot where you're going to go X1 or be winning a GT, I would very strongly recommend that you stay on Grizzled. It's just, if you don't know how to use reinforcements well, if you don't know how to use the tools that combined does provide effectively, and you weren't doing well before, Grizzled just smooths out a lot of those issues by just making it way easier to do a lot of the things. Other thing to note is I track like several data sheets win rates, and basically everything you can think of is significantly higher. Indirect has gone up several percentage points. Super heavies are up several percentage points. Even things like the Leman Russ Commander and Lord Solar are significantly higher than they were before. So things are looking really good. Just in general, everything is quite a bit up. With that though, let's go ahead and start getting into our first category of lists. This is one you guys should be expecting. It is 2 Dorns and 2 or more Vanquishers. This has been very common. We've been seeing this quite a bit. Once again, strategy is generally you're going to be using some amount of like either really cheap midboard or very effective skirmishing midboard. Cheap stuff being like units of 5 horses, maybe some Krieg engineers, maybe units of 10 Catachan, maybe some scout sentinels. Or you're going to be going with a more elite skirmishing style of list with like 2 or 3 chimeras and Kazarkin and maybe some signs in order to create a lot of space, force your opponent to spend units they don't want to, and then you're going to kill them with all of your tanks. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the lists that we did have this weekend. First one, we had Jawad Salah coming in, has had a couple of appearances so far in the videos, doing reasonably well, doing quite well over the past couple of months with Guard. I believe they were a World Leaders player before. I believe that's what I was told at some point. But Jawad winning CanCon 40K over in Australia. And Jawad had a pretty normal looking list for this kind of thing. It was Gaunt's Ghost, a Krieg command squad, Lord Solar, a Rogaldorn commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, 10 Catachan, 10 Krieg, 10 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, one unit of Catachan mortars. Again, if you're going to take mortars at all, it should always be the Catachan mortars. You should never take the Cadian mortars. It should always be the Catachan mortars. And then you have the 3 Luminous Vanquishers and a Dorn battle tank. So this one is leaning more towards just having more cheap things to kind of throw around, right? You have the 10 Catachan, 5 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders. And then the Catachan mortars can just be Catachan number 3. In matchups where you don't need them, you can stick your home with the Cadians, and then they can start running forward relatively quickly because you do have the mortars in some matchups where the mortars are relevant. Otherwise, you just have cheap stuff. You're going to put it in front of your tanks. Then your tanks are going to kill what your opponent, is showing immediately afterwards. Pretty normal stuff overall coming out here. The biggest decision here, of course, is choosing to go with the 10 Krieg for the unit instead of the 10 Cadians. Most major tournament organizers at this point have ruled that you cannot use these servo scribes to snap to it, but I'm not sure what the ruling was there. But just having that extra order every now and then can be kind of useful on the unit as well. Jawad ended up beating Ultramarines, Grey Knights, Necrons, 1,000 Suns, and then winning a Guard Mirror in round 5. Speaking of, at the same event, we had Paul Bampton, a player whose name I have not seen pop up before, also playing Grizzled Company at the same event, and he's the one that lost to Jawad in round 5. It was Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Lord Solar, Ogren Bodyguard, 10 Cadians, a Chimera, 10 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn, 5 Rough Riders, 5 Death Riders, 5 Death Riders, Kazarkin, Luminous Vanquisher, Dorn Battle Tank, Dorn Battle Tank. So a big thing about this, if we kind of compare it, there's actually quite a lot of similarities. You have the 20 Rough Riders, but this version has 6 Bullgryn and 2 units of 5 Death Riders, and then the 2 Cadian Command Squads with Ogren Bodyguards. I'm assuming... The really interesting thing that I look at with Paul's list here, though, is you have the 2 Cadian Command Squads with the Ogren Bodyguards, but there's only the 1 unit of 10 Cadians, and I did double check that. So there's a weird, something odd is kind of going on here, because either the Commissar is attached to the Bullgryn, in which case he can't really interact with the Cadian Command Squads, the other things that he can order if they have the Ogren Bodyguards, or Lord Solar is running around with the tanks. I'm not sure which one is which, but you are stretching your orders a little bit thin by going for this style of list. And it makes sense to me that it was struggling in the mirror simply because the extra Vanquisher coming out from Jawad style does mean that you do tend to win the shootouts. And it's not as though there's activation gating coming out from Paul's list. You only have the 1 Chimera, which is one of the big things that this style of list can, the Vanquisher style of list can struggle with sometimes, is if you have to shoot at transports and then the transports just gate what it is that you can actually kill them. There's only the 1 here, and having 1 tank fewer, it's not as though Grizzled's really going to struggle getting through the Bullgryn. It's not going to be terribly difficult. You can definitely do it. And you're also not going to be super hard-pressed to go through the Cadian Command Squads with the Ogren Bodyguards. So it does make sense to me that Jawad would have a bit of an advantage here as well. Paul ended up beating Orcs, Blood Angels, Death Guard, Dark Angels, and then losing to Jawad in the 5th round. Moving over to the other side of the globe, we do go over to the Hamburg Major, where we first take a look at Manuel B-E-L, or Bell Wietzerek, or Wietzerek. And Manuel is a player who does very well with kind of odd things. He was the one playing the Canis Rex Bridgehead with 3 units of 6 Ogren. Ogren with the Ripper guns during... I don't remember if it's the last slate or the slate before, but he loves just kind of bringing something a little bit unique. This time, though, going with something relatively tried and true. He had a Cadian Command Squad, a Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gonskos, Lord Solar, a Thorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 3 Scout Sentinels, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, a single Cyclops, 3 Vanquishers, and a Thorn Battle Tank. So once again, going towards a lot of the cheap stuff to go in front of the Lemur's Vanquishers and the Thorns. You have you have 1, 2, 3, 4 units of horses that are all 60 points each, and then the 3 Scout Sentinels, which are each 55. So that's 7 just things that you can just throw into the middle of the board that are relatively cheap. And they do okay. The Scout Sentinels don't really do any damage, but the Rough Riders and Death Riders, they skirmish okay. Then you have the Bullgryn, the 1 unit Bullgryn, which is going to be with the Commissar. You just attach that directly there. And then you have 5 tanks. And yeah, I do like the Lord Solar and the one Dorn commander a little bit better than the Lord Solar and two Dorn battle tanks formation that we do have Manuel going here. Manuel did beat Space Wolves, Tau, World Leaders, lost to Space Wolves in the fourth round, and then beat Orcs. So pretty normal looking stuff here. Again, lots of cheap stuff standing in front of your tanks and forcing your opponent to come out and fight you. So good stuff from Manuel. Staying in the same event, we're going to take a look at Sebastian Newkirchen, Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, Chimera, 5 Rough Riders, Kazarkin, 5 Ratlings, Lemanros Exterminator, and then 3 Lemanros Vanquishers. So this is a lot of similarities to what we were kind of seeing from the list that Isaac Terada took to the Las Vegas Teams tournament a couple weeks ago. Because you'd have the 2 Rogaldorn Commanders and then 3 Vanquishers and an Exterminator, but changing out some of the pieces that you do have in the middle of the board, where Isaac was going with like 3 Chimeras and 3 Kazarkin. This one changes out some of the Kazarkin and one of the Chimeras for more horses, Ratlings, a couple extra like battle line units. So it's got a couple more things than we were seeing from the Isaac Terada style of list, but still good enough to go for a 4-1 here in Hamburg and a starting 4-0, so really good stuff from Sebastian, who started this below 1500. Custodes, Demons, Tau, Tyranids, and losing in the last round to Emperor's Children. Very big surprise to me in general. Emperor's Children does not have a good matchup into guard. It's actually really, really tough. So a bit of a tip there for Sebastian and anybody else who is watching this and is curious. The way that you would play this list is typically the 2 Dorn, 3 Vanquisher list. You're going to send out like the horses first. They're going to be like your first line. They're going to go out. They're going to deny some primary. But into Emperor's Children, especially if it's into Coterie the Conceited, the first thing that you ask your opponent to try and kill is the 3 Lemanros Vanquishers, because even if they get like, a lot of their infiltrating stuff is not going to be able to kill them consistently, or like barely at all. So they really have to start bringing out some of their heavier hitters right away. Winged Demon Princes don't tend to do it. Mauler Fiends can, but even they, because they have such a low volume of attacks, run out of firepower very quickly. And if they don't get that kill, well, then you just kill the Mauler Fiend right back, and your opponent is still back to not having met their pledge. And that's a general way that you can generally play into Emperor's Children. You kind of play it a little bit backwards. You send out your tankier units first to force your opponent to deal with them. Okay, going right on back down under, we do have at Uprising Adelaide, Grizzled Company piloted by Matt Hearn, aka Osbox, one of the guys that hangs out in my Discord fairly often. He was playing a Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 3 Chimeras, 3 Kazarkin, unit of 5 Engineers, and 3 Lemanros Vanquishers. This is almost exactly the list that I was practicing for a little while for some team stuff. The 3 Chimeras, the 3 Kazarkin. I think I had like a second unit of Engineers or something, but it was very, very similar. I might have had like Ursula Creed or Castle and Brick or something very similar to this. I like this style a little bit more than having the horses running around, because the Chimeras and the Kazarkin do kill things a little bit better. One of the downsides of this, of course, is not having Lord Solar, so you are a little bit more pressed for making sure you have command points to do the things that you want to do, but overall it still ends up being very, very effective. I just like going for the brawl, and you tend to play in this style, you tend to play the Lemanros Vanquishers further forward just in general than you would with a lot of the ones that have like horses, just because you just want to use the toughness 11 to up save quite a bit. Matt ended up... Ooh, I forgot to include that. Let me go double check for you guys. Matt Hearn lost to Adeptus Mechanicus, beating Necrons, Orcs, White Scars, Tau, Thousand Suns, Space Wolves, and losing to Necrons in the final round. Yeah, good stuff. Going on to our next archetype. Another very familiar archetype. You have 2 Dorns, and then you take either 2 or 3 units of 6 Bullgryn. So you kind of look at them in kind of a similar way, right, as you do with the Vanquishers. Vanquishers, in general, you prefer playing them in the midboard, but you can play them further back. The reason why you tend to play them in the midboard is if you're playing them as like just a gun tank and not a tank that has guns on it, you're kind of overpaying for the platform, and you really want to be using the fact that it's toughness 11 to up save 13 wounds, whereas if you're playing it really far back, Sure, you more oftentimes get the heavy on the main gun, but like then you're overpaying for defensive stats. That's the main thoughts. Anyway, so 3 Vanquishers cost you just under 450, 435, because they're each 145 times 3. Yeah, 435, and then 12 Bullgryn are going to cost you 400. So it's like similar price category at that point. But the Bullgryn are going to be playing in the midboard, and they're going to be beating up Marines mostly. So this uses a similar idea. You're going to be using your Bullgryn. This, again, you kind of have a choice between, do you want like Kazarkin in transports? Do you want horses to run around being cheap? Or do you want like Scions? And this version tends to go with, it tends to be like a healthier mix than we tend to see with the Dorn Vanquisher variant. But the first one we're going to take a look at, also at the Hamburg Major, is Christopher C42. Ooh, I'm going to guess Naujox. I'm going to guess Naujox because I know it is a German. It looks like a Germanic name, and I believe that's how they say the J. Naujox. If somebody knows better, I appreciate when you guys help me figure out how to say names from around the world. Anyway, Christopher was playing a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Epium Detail, Gans Goes, Rogolthorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 2 Tauroxes, an Artillery with a Heavy Mortar, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Kazarkin, presumably going in the Tauroxes basically every time, 1 unit of 5 Rattlings, 1 Dorn Vanquisher, and 1 Rogolthorn Battle Tank. So saving a little bit of points there on the second Rogolthorn being a battle tank. You just have to be a little bit careful that the Rogolthorn Commander and the Rogolthorn Battle Tank stay kind of close. This is not my style of how I like running my Rogolthorns, because I really value the fact that I can have both of my Rogolthorns just playing right away if I need them to, and it's not as valuable to go after like a certain target. I hate babying my single Rogolthorn commander if I only have one, but it's something that you can do, of course. Anyway, pretty normal style coming out here. Again, you have the Bullgryn shaving a couple points here and there by taking the Tauroxes instead of the Chimeras, the Rogolthorn Battle Tank instead of the Rogolthorn Commander. So you're able to get like, what is that? That's 25, 35, 45. I don't know. That gets you like most of the way to a unit of Rattlings or Rough Riders or something. I mean, if you downgrade a Field Runner's Battery to an Artillery team, then that gets you the 60 points for 5 more horses. So, something like that. Makes a lot of sense. Christopher ended up beating Tyranids before losing to Necrons and then beating Ultramarines, Demons, and Votann to round it out, going 4-1. Going over a little bit further north, Jeppe Resmark at GFGT III, going 4-1 with Grizzled Company. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Adpium Detail, 2 Rogolthorn Commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 6 Ogryn. I'm sorry if you guys can hear my dog. He's very excited about something. And then 2 Scout Sentinels. I'm not going to lie. I look at this list and it screams to me that it's going to be played on WTC terrain, because you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 like almost exclusively melee units between the Rough Riders and the Death Riders. And the unit of 6 Ogryn also relatively interesting. This has been a lot harder to use on Games Workshop terrain, but I know there have been some people who have been experimenting with it on WTC terrain, where you don't have to move quite as far because it only moves 6 inches. But it is a lot of melee pieces. They are relatively fast between the Rough Riders and the Death Riders. You have the Scouting Catachan, and so you kind of flood the midboard with relatively cheap things, and you try and set them up such that you can charge whatever comes to fight your Rough Riders or your Death Riders with the Bullgryn on the next turn. So it ends up being very successful into a lot of different armies. Jeppe ends up beating World Eaters and Genestealer cults before losing to Demons, and then goes on to beat Necrons and Death Guard. So congratulations to Jeppe on the 4-1. Going over to the Pacific Northwest, over in Vancouver, Canada, or very near there, we have Adam Green, one of the top guard players in Canada. We have not been seeing him play guard for a while. I don't know what he's been switching off to, but this time showing up with a 5-1, beating Skari in the 6th round of this event with Grizzled Company. He takes a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Adpium Detail, Khan's Ghost, 2 Rogolthorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, a Field Ordnance Battery. Every Field Ordnance Battery you see is going to be taken with a Bombast field gun I think they're called, whatever the indirect one is called. 2 units of Kazarkin, and a Lehman Russ Vanquisher. So this is a lot of beef, not a lot of subtlety to this list. You're going to go make people. You're just trying to brawl with people, right? The Kazarkin in the Chimeras, the unit of 10 Rough Riders as a rapid ingress a lot of the time, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, a Vanquisher. You're just going to shove a lot of obnoxiously difficult things to kill in the middle of the board, and then you're going to ask, and then do you also survive getting shot by 2 Recon Dorns immediately afterwards? The answer is not a lot of things can actually pass that. He ends up beating Necrons before losing to Necrons, beating Demons, Space Wolves, Emperor's Children, and then beating Skari's Cabalite Cartel in round 6. So well done to Adam Green, and welcome back to the faction. Moving right on back down under, we have Camilo Valencia Montoya coming out with a 6-2 at Uprising Adelaide. Same event that we saw Matt Hearn play at. Both of them went 6-2. I believe Camilo technically placed higher than Matt did, but they both went 6-2. And Camilo was playing a Cadian Command Squad with Commissar at Puma Detail. I'm sure you've seen this a lot. The Cadian Command Squad and Commissar are basically always attached to each other. Scion Command Squad, 2 Rogadorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Krieg, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of Kazarkin, 5 Scions, a Lehman Russ Vanquisher, and then 2 Scout Sentinels. So a little bit slower on the board, not valuing the Chimeras in this list. And in general, this list is a little bit slower, so this tends to play. You can't throw out anything like super cheap. You can, because you don't even have a Catachan. You're mostly just using the Scout Sentinels to go kind of get the game started right off the bat, and then you use like the Kazarkin and the Bullgryn to go follow it up, and then the Scions to just go try and do a lot of damage all at the same time on turn 2. Camilo ended up beating Necrons, losing to Chaos Knights, beating Emperor's Children, Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Admech, losing to Necrons, and then beating Emperor's Children in round 8 to go 6-2. So well done to Camilo, and welcome to the videos. Northern Warlords, we have one of our first teams list that we're going to be showing you guys. This one was piloted by Tom Wright, who did show up in a video a couple weeks ago, last week, recently. Tom Wright going 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. He had the Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Ad Puma Detail, Gonskos, a Scion Command Squad with a Quill and Eye, 1 Rogal Dorn Commander, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 Toroxes, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Kazarkin, 5 Scions, and a Rogal Dorn Battle Tank. Again, just a lot of cheap stuff. You're going to put them in places where you can charge the Bullgryn into them afterwards. Then you have the 2 Rogal Dorns in the back. Tom Wright ended up going 10-10 into Orcs, 18-2 into Thousand Suns, 11-9 into Ultramarines, a 4-16 into Custodes. I did not take a look at what the Custodes lists were, but this is a very surprising result to me, and a 16-4 into Drukhari. Depending on what kind of Drukhari it was, I do have it written down somewhere, but the big thing here is getting a 4 into Custodes is very surprising, because Custodes hate fighting into Bullgryn. They are the army of, here's a lot of attacks at 7-2-2, which become 7-2-1, or basically 7-1-1. So they aren't, like, they really, really struggle to chew their way through Bullgryn efficiently. And as long as you are giving them something else to munch on first, and you don't just let them, like, shoot with Custodian Guard, and then charge the seeming of Bullgryn, as long as you're making them, like, shoot at the Rough Riders or something, you can very, very quickly get into a situation where you ask, like, if they're playing any Wardens, hey, do you want to feel no pain against the Dorns, or do you want to feel no pain against my Bullgryn next turn? Because they are still going to kill, like, 2 or 3 Custodians when they charge in. So very surprised at what happened there. Not exactly sure how that ended up happening, but still, Tom Wright going 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw for his team. It was a 4-man teams, so something to kind of keep in mind. Next, we have Community Assemble 2. I believe this was in... I think this was in Spain, but I would have to double check. Not sure off the top of my head. But it was Pepe Andrew going 4 wins and 1 loss. He has a Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with AP Tail, 2 Rogal Dorn Commanders, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit of Catachan Mortars, 2 units of Kazarkin, and then 2 Lehman Russ Vanquishers. This, of course, could have gone in the other category. One of the big things that we are kind of noticing, though, between the 2 categories is between the 2 Dorns and 2 or more Vanquishers, there's there's kind of a split between whether or not you go Lord Solar or you just take 2 Dorn commanders. As soon as you start taking Bullgryn in your list, the decision almost becomes exclusively Dorn commanders, which is part of why I kind of went over this direction. Either way, a ton of beef coming out of Pepe's list in this one. The Warlords Vanquishers, the Bullgryn, the Dorn commanders, and then you're just going to be brawling it out with the 2 units of Khazarkin and Chimeras, and then the 10 Rough Riders to have a bit of punch. This is a very take all comers list that has a slight skew to preferring to play on open boards. This one, I did not list the results correctly, so let me go find those for you. 4 wins and 1 loss. It was a 19-1 into Genestealer Cults, a 12-8 into Sisters, an 8-12 into Demons, a 17-3 into Custodes, and a 13-7 into Votann. So well done over there to Pepe and his team, who ended up going 4 wins and 1 draw. Okay. Next, we're going to... So those were the 2 most common categories we had this last weekend, and we're starting to see a lot of coalescence around those 2 archetypes. We have one more archetype that has a couple of lists in it, and then we just have some oddballs towards the end. Tanks and midboard, tried and true. This mostly differentiates itself from like the Dorns and Bullgryn, because you still tend to go 2 Rogal Dorns with... It just doesn't usually have Bullgryn in it. Sometimes you'll get 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn, but otherwise it's like Khazarkin and Chimeras, Rough Riders, horses, all that kind of good stuff. They play similarly, but they don't have the same kind of melee punch. This one, we have Andy Jespersen playing at Hamburg Major once again. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar with Add Human Detail. Gans goes Lord Solar, a Scion Command Squad, 10 Cadians, 10 Rough Riders, 5 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn, 5 Engineers, 5 Engineers, 5 Scions, 2 Luminous Exterminators, and 2 Rogal Battle Tanks. So, honestly, this is very similar in a lot of ways to the 2 Dorns, 2 Vanks. You just have the Rough Riders, Scions, and Bullgryn to just go hang out in the middle, and then you're going to shoot them with overwhelming firepower immediately afterwards. That was good enough to get Andy a 4-1, beating Ultramarines, losing to Tyranids. That one's always been a surprise to me, but Tyranids generally tend to struggle to kill Leman Russes, even a Tyrannofex. Like, as long as the Tyrannofex is not hitting on 2s, especially 2s rerolling 1s, the Tyrannofex is not very likely. It's only like 10% to kill a Leman Russ, so either like you can smoke, or you can just make the Tyrannofex move so it's hitting on 3s or 4s, and oftentimes not even rerolling 1s if it's not in Subterranean Assault. At that point, your tank almost always... It doesn't always, but like it usually survives from that position unless they were lining up multiple Tyrannofexes to shoot at the same Leman Russ. So you can oftentimes just like get into shootouts, and there's definitely enough stuff here to screen out a lot of the other subterranean stuff going on. But anyway, Andy beating Ultras, losing to Tyranids, beating Tau, Chaos Knights, and then Imperial Knights to go for a 4-1. Welcome back to the video, and I hope to see you again soon. Next, we have Sifan Ju coming out from Serpent's Endgame. I believe this one was in Shanghai, China. Going with a Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad, Kachan Command Squad, Commissar with Ab Human Detail, Scion Command Squad, an Ogrim Bodyguard to go with the Kachan Command Squad, Rogal Dorn Commander, an Engine Seer, a bit of an interesting choice, 20 Cadians to attach to the Cadian Command Squad and the Castellan, 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, 1 Taurox, 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn, which goes with the Commissar, of course, 3 units of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 5 Scions, and 2 Lemur's Vanquishers. So a bit of a grab bag of everything coming through, but this still mostly just like plays the middle of the board. You still have enough firepower in the Rogal Dorn and the Vanquishers to keep your opponent honest, but every other single piece here is just efficient damage, right? You can stand in places pretty good. You can do, you can kill a lot of units of small... Or you can kill a lot of small units of Marines between Chimeras and Khazarkin. Scions will kill most of a Marine unit, and then the Cadian Castellan unit of the 20 Cadians also just does a lot of damage to most Marine shapes and most smaller things in general. Sifan ended up beating Votann 14-6, Votann again 17-3, 14-6 into Demons, and a 19-1 into Eldar, and his team ended up getting 3 wins and 1 loss overall. I think they ended up getting second. So welcome back, Sifan, and excited to see more of these events coming out of China, actually showing up on the BCP searches. Okay, next we have 3 kind of oddball lists to show you guys. They don't really fit into any of the other categories that we have shown so far. and we'll talk about them a little bit more in depth as we get there. First one, we have Matthew Edgington coming out from the Winchester GT. Matthew Edgington was one of the early adopters, really loved playing a lot of Scions back in the day for Bridgehead, and I think he was playing like a lot of Scions even during like the Index. Like he was really into the Scions. Even the list title for this one is like his homebrew chapter. I think it's 133rd Iron Vipers, but they walk is what he called it this time. So anyway, Matt was playing a Commissar with Abhema Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, a Krieg Command Squad, 3 Tauroxes. We'll get to that in a moment. 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 Khazarkin, 5 Rattlings, and a unit of Aquilons. And then to round it all out, 3 Armiger Warglaves allied in from the Imperial Knights Codex. Interesting choice coming out here from the Armiger Warglaves, of course. One of the big things that they did lose when they were playing in the Index is they went down from a 24-inch range on their Meltas to the 18-inch range, so you cannot come in from reserve in order to threaten people with that Melta 4, Strength 12, I think it's Strength 12, on their like Melta guns that you just come in. But the 3 Warglaves, one of the nice things about them, of course, is they are OC 6? No, I think they're OC 6. It's pretty high OC on the units. And they also like they're not like great melee, but they can melee. So you have you have a lot of melee between all of the Rough Riders and the Bullgryn, and then you have the 3 Khazarkin and Tauroxes, which just go like shoot something. And then the Krieg Command Squad is just kind of hanging out towards the back, giving out orders as you need them, along with Gaunt's Ghost, and then the Commissar, because there's not 10 Krieg. Is that correct? Hold on, let me double check that. Man, where are you? Oh, there he is. Boom. Is there not a 10 Krieg in here? There's not a 10 Krieg. Are there engineers? There are not Krieg engineers, yeah. Just the Krieg Command Squad running around on its own. So really interesting list overall. You have like enough staying power with your Bullgryn, and then they are just like attack squads of Khazarkin and the Tauroxes. They don't have the same like brawling power as the Chimeras do. But you have plenty of other just brawling power between your Bullgryn and the Warglaves that you're generally going to be okay. Anyway, Matt ended up beating Ultramarines Eldar, losing to Dark Angels before beating Tyranids and Dark Angels again, and beating Dark Angels in the 5th round here to go for 4-1. So good to see you back. Glad that you're enjoying Guard. Next, we have Wesley St. Hines getting another GT win. I saw a stat somewhere. Someone in my Discord said that apparently Wesley St. Hines has not lost at like regular GTs. He has 20-0 for GT wins that he's gone to before we start going to like super majors like the World Championships or like LVO or these other like really big events that you sometimes play in. So just like your like 20 to 50 person GTs, apparently Wesley St. Hines has not lost a game at them ever. So very cool stuff coming out from Wesley. Anyway, he's going back with his Recon stuff, but it has gone through a couple of revisions since we last really took a look at the Recon. It's 2 Cadian Castellans, 3 Cadian Command Squads, Gaunt's Ghost, Scion Command Squad, 2 Ogrim Bodyguards, so kind of taking a page out of the Gustavo book, who was one of the first people to popularize this at the higher level. Ursa Creed, 3 units of 20 Cadians. I think one of these is supposed to be a 10-man Catachan. I make another mistake here. I did this pretty late last night, so let's double check. Cadians. Nope, they're both 20-man units of Catachan. 4 units of 10 Death Corps of Krieg, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Engineers, a unit of 5 Scions. Remember the last time we took a look at this, it was a Scion Command Squad and 10 Scions, and then only 1 Engineer unit coming out. So shifting a little bit more towards the Engineers and then a singular Scout Sentinel. I don't know what to say about Recon that hasn't been said already. You are flooding the board. You have the Ogrim Bodyguards here, which does make the like you end up oftentimes popping out, right? Like you'll kill the 20 Cadians, which is not easy to do, but definitely something that is very doable. But the thing is, the Ogrim Bodyguard, you can then kind of sacrifice the Castellan, who has, I think it's 4 wounds and a 5-up invul and a 4-up Feel No Pain from the Ogre Bodyguard, and suddenly, like, that Castellan tanks so much damage because you have the 5-up invul and the 4-up Feel No Pain, so suddenly your opponent, who's trying to put in a lot of, like, damage 1 attacks, ends up having 4, 6, like 12. You have to do like 12 damage to him on average to kill him, which oftentimes mean you get the Cadian Command Squad with the Ogre Bodyguard popping out, which we've talked about before in the past. Anyway, Wesley St. Hines does have win over World Leaders, Demons, Space Wolves, Demons, and then Demons again. That's right, 3 different Demons players on the same event. 2 of them were on Scintillating, and 1 of them was on the Khorne Blood Legion. So good stuff to Wesley there on his 20th GT win in a row. Last, we have Philipp Koenig coming out from Austria at the Beer and Pretzel GT. And this is very similar to the another thing that Gustavo popularized. And I say Gustavo popularizes a lot of things, probably because he's very vocal about the stuff that he tends to be testing, and he also names them, which is very nice. So if people want to start naming the things that they're doing, you will get more shoutouts in these videos. But Philip has been having a great couple of months, been showing up in a lot of events over the course of January and even towards the end of the September slate. But 2 Cadian Castellans, 2 Cadian Command Squads, a Silent Command Squad with the Aquilin Eye, so the +1 AP order, 2 Ogre Bodyguards, 2 Royal Dorn Commanders, 2 units of 20 Cadians, a unit of 10 Catachan, a unit of 10 Krieg, 3 Chimeras, 3 Khazarkin, and a unit of 5 Scions. So very similar stuff that Philip was playing at some of his previous teams events and previous singles events. You have a lot of durability between the 2 Cadian bricks that your opponent oftentimes can't deal with, and then you're also flooding them with just a lot of brawling power with the Chimeras and the Khazarkin and the problem solvers in the Scions. You have the Catachan, you have the Krieg, you have ways to like stand in places that is annoying for your opponent. So there's a lot of tools here to just like create blocks for the important parts of your army. But even then, like the Cadian Castellan break, you can start one of them in reserve, you can start both of them on the board, and they are very good tools for like threatening heroics, like you Rapid Ingress into a heroic, or you can go with a Rapid Ingress into an Overwatch, or you can just Rapid Ingress them and then go charge things because you can fall back and shoot and not every other army can. Philip was playing at a teams event here, so he gets a 20-0 into a Guard Mirror, 20-0 into Blood Angels, 12-8 into Admech, and 11-9 into Ultramarines, and then a 12-8 into Votann. So good stuff overall to Philip for coming in, and I think that's like 4 or 5 straight videos that we've had Philip in. It's a lot. He's been doing a lot of good Warhammer over the past week, so really good stuff to Philip there. Anyway, that is all of the list that we have had today. We had about 5 double Dorn, triple Vanquisher, about 5 double Dorn, 12 or more Bullgryn, 2 tanks and midboard, or midboard and tanks, and then 3 things that are a little bit more out there. So still close to 20 lists that we had this last weekend. Still a lot of good stuff. In general, if you are already thinking about trying to play Grizzled Company, again, as long as you just pick the good data sheets and not the bad data sheets, it's hard to write a list that doesn't function right now, and the consistency has really gone through the roof. So if you just want to play Grizzled, yeah, you know, just do the good stuff. Go stand on circles better than your opponent, and you are going to get a lot of wins. Once again, if you are interested in joining the Discord, let's go ahead and do those plugs here. Find me on Reddit or on Discord. I will not respond to comments on the YouTube videos about joining the Discord. I'm not going to be putting those links out in public. That's how you get bots. And we don't want those cooties in the Discord. Anyway, other major thing, if you are interested in coaching, my time is relatively available now that we are into early January or late January, early February. If you're interested in getting coaching, again, let me know. The best way to get a hold of me is going to be on Discord. And then we can go ahead and talk about that. If you want to get better at guard, if you're just trying to learn how to play the faction, or you're trying to become better to potentially start taking down your own tournaments, there's a lot of stuff that we could potentially talk about in order to help you meet your competitive goals. For now, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Meta Update. This has been Joshua Howard, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.